Take 5.
All right. So when we are finding ourselves wanting to find enlightenment and to become in more an enlightened state, a lot of us disregard the fact that we can always achieve a enlightened state or becoming more enlightened. And many people might be asking, like, how do you acquire that? How do you acquire the state of being at peace and not having so much disruption and chaos in our everyday life, or feeling like that we are in too much suffering or too much pain? Well, the first thing to know is when we are wanting to become more enlightened, or what we think this peaceful state as we see in like Buddhist monks, or we see in very like spiritual teachers, as we see in our spiritual teachers as well, is we get this feeling from them that they're very in tune with themselves and very at peace with what is. And maybe you're going through a time in your life where you are disorganized, maybe you feel alone, or too much chaos that's going on around you, too much noise. And it's very hard to find this inner peace, even listening to ourselves. And how do we achieve that enlightened state? How do we become more at peace with what is? And you might be asking, well, what do you know about it? What do you know about peace? And all I can say is I'm also still working toward that. But the one thing that I have discovered why I'm going through this journey of mine, the spiritual journey, and learning the ins and outs of myself and how I can be more connected to myself, is to realize that my mind, what I'm thinking, is one of the causes to enlightened state. And for those who are going through that, realize that if you want to become more enlightened, for one thing, you have to realize what you are identifying with. What are you thinking about? Throughout your whole entire day, the question is, what are you thinking of? What are you thinking about? And are you identifying with something? Because when you are suffering, not feeling like you are in the present moment, chances are you're probably identifying with something, or you're caught up in something. And when you are identifying with something within your life, you are basically saying, I am this, and so I have to suffer. Like when you put your identity, which is suffering by the way, when you're identifying with something which is making you feel a certain way, and you're thinking about it, which is only perpetuating that thought. When you keep thinking about it, you're causing suffering. You're causing more of a dysfunction within yourself. So how can we stop that or hinder that? Well, it's not so to say we can stop it, but it's more of to listen to it. Listen to what your thoughts are saying, which is what you see a lot in meditation. And realize that those aren't really your thoughts. Those are just the thoughts you were thinking as you're experiencing thoughts and experiencing especially emotion. And by observing what you're thinking in the current moment and observing what you're feeling, you're then allowing it to be, because you're looking at it from almost like a bird's eye point of view. You're not being in that identity anymore. Because when you're meditating, you're observing from a different perspective. You're not really being. Just as if you were driving a car, and when you're really focused on the road, you're not thinking about everything. You're in a meditative state, which has been described by Abraham Hicks when you're driving. So how exactly is it that we can stop suffering? Well, the thing is, suffering also is a thing we experience within our life. But the question is, when we do feel like we're suffering, can we step out of it? Can we observe it? There was a quote from Buddha. I'm not sure if it's exactly how it fully went, but it was, Attachment is the root of all suffering. And what you're attaching to, or this identity you're attached to, is what's causing your suffering. And how you're thinking and perceiving things to be is what will only make you have this consistent belief of how things are. And the only way to get out of it is to observe it and to accept it for what it is.